No worries. All right, you guys, I am super excited for today. It's really cool. And I am going to put this plug, but she's an Olympian and I'm super excited she's here. She's so sweet. I just have barely met her in person, but she's been so nice through all the conversation we've had over Messenger. So I'm super excited for you guys to hear from her. I found her through a fellow friend who had her on her podcast and she said yes when I asked her. So I'm so excited. And she's just the sweetest. And I'm excited to learn more about her story because like I've told you, every time I do these interviews, I learn something new and it's probably like one of my most favorite things because thinking, I'm an adoptee, I should know. I don't know it all. And so that's why I'm so excited to do these and learn. So I have Laura on with me and she's an amazing badass Olympic diver. And so I'm so excited for you guys to hear from her. So I will go ahead and turn the time over to you.
Milena, thank you for having me on. I'm really excited. I was just telling her, you guys, that I don't get to talk about adoption very much, and that's like my heart. So I'm really excited to talk about all the things. And so she's asked me to tell how adoption came into my life. And honestly, it didn't start with my kids. I have 4 kids and 2 came to us via adoption, but adoption came into my life pretty much before I was born. My older brother is adopted. And so my parents kind of went through everything trying to have kids, couldn't have kids. So they started shadowing, this is way back in the early 70s, shadowing another couple through a lawyer friend on like how adoption worked back then. So they were following this other couple. And when this baby was born that they were supposed to adopt, the couple decided they didn't want this child because of the way he looked. And so it was just a really bad situation. And because my parents were there, and the person who had kind of the rights over the baby at the time, which was the doctor, it was a very weird situation. He told the lawyer, hey, if this other couple liked the baby, great. It was a very weird situation. My parents were like, okay. So with like 24 hours notice, they, get minimal supplies from the local store and bring this little baby home. And absolutely loved him. And it was just, my mom just calls him her miracle child. And almost 5 years later, my mom got real sick, went to the doctor. They told her she was pregnant. She didn't believe them because she'd been trying for 9 years to have a baby and just thought that was not in the cards. And she kept calling back the nurse saying, okay, I'm not pregnant. I can't be pregnant. And they're like, no, you're pregnant. So she calls us both her miracle children, which is really cool. We both came to the family different ways, but my mom has always presented it to me that way. And as much as my brother and I, like siblings do, we fought and butted heads when we were little and became friends once we were older, and still great friends, but sometimes we need a little, time away from each other as siblings do. I can't imagine my life without him. He very much shaped my character, how I treat people, how I see the world, and I just can't imagine it any different way. So that's kind of how adoption initially came into my life. When I retired from diving the first time in 2008, I was 30. We'd been married for, I guess, 6 years at the time. We were ready to start a family. It was that time. And we struggled getting pregnant. And, I was like, well, I don't really care how I have a kid. I just want a kid. And so we started looking into adoption because to me, that was just like the natural, that's what you do. If you don't have a kid, you adopt. Like, that sounds like a great plan. My coaches had adopt from college. I'd seen a lot of people adopt. It was a very normal thing to me. And so we proceeded to start looking into that route. But my husband was really nervous about it. He wasn't really around that. He didn't understand that and was kind of like, I'm not real comfortable on this. I don't want to do that. And I remember going through like a whole summer of mourning where I thought, I'm never going to be a mom. I can't birth kids. I can't adopt kids. Like, who am I if I can't be a mom? It's the only thing besides diving I ever wanted to do. And it was really cool because God did like a whole heart change on my husband. And he came around, kind of long story short, heart was totally softened. And he's like, I do think we need to adopt and we need to have a lot of conversations. We had all the hard conversations. What if our kids don't look like us? What if we don't know their medical history? How do we do this? Like all the questions, the hard questions that you don't necessarily want to talk about, but you have to if you're going to invite that into your life. And so we decided, I think it was our 7th or 8th wedding anniversary. For our anniversary, we signed our first adoption papers. We had settled on adopting from China because I had been to China multiple times. I had fallen in love with the country. I had some friends who lived there and had kind of developed my love for the country. My coach had adopted from there, my college coach. So I just had this like passion for China. And we actually thought, because China at the time, it was kind of getting to be a longer wait. And so you could do a concurrent adoption, another one at the same time. So we were looking into what other country we would adopt through. And again, because of other people's experiences, some books I read, we were really starting to lean toward Ethiopia. And right as we were about to start that concurrent adoption, I found out I was pregnant, which I didn't think I could get pregnant. So it was like, wow, okay, we're going to have 2 kids now, one from China, one from my tummy. Like, this will be really awesome. And as my biological daughter got to be about 1 year old, the wait in China had gotten so long that we were really worried that the girls were going to be far apart in age, and we didn't want that. And so we actually decided to switch to special needs, because, and let me preface this, not just that they would be a couple years apart, the wait had grown from 3 years to 6 years and was looking to extend to possibly 10 years. And so we're like, these are only 2 kids. We wanted them to be closer together. So we started looking at special needs, which is a whole other ballgame and was really scary, because I always felt like, well, if God gives us a baby with a special need, then okay, he's going to equip me and I'll know how to handle it and it'll be fine. Like, we'll figure it out. But requesting a special need and having to choose what that special need may or may not be is a really weird process, because you feel like you're actively saying, I don't want these children. I want these children. And it's like, it's such a weird space to be in your head. But we had a pediatrician who had been through the same process and actually helped us navigate that special need list. Like, you can't have an albino child in Houston. That's really, really difficult. Like, let's look at these options instead. Like, and so she really helped us understand, what are these issues? What would they look like? And they'll tell you something on paper, but you don't actually know the magnitude of it. So you bring that child home and have them examined here. It can be wildly different. And so we had kind of all these things we were open to. And so it was a very strange process, like going through that. And I remember when we saw the first little picture of Zoe, who is our little baby from China. She's not a baby anymore. She's like 10 now, but she was a baby then. And we saw this little picture of this kind of sad, frumpy kid, like half in the shadows. And we were like, oh my goodness, that's our daughter. Like, we just knew right away, and it was so cute because she doesn't have a left ear. And my dad lost his hearing when he was little from the measles and had surgery. He's been all over the board with his hearing. And he's like, that's not a special need. Like, that's not even a big deal. Like, I don't, and I think he got really invested because this child may have the same issues he's had. And so he felt really connected to her. So we got so excited. So it took about 3 months from that point to bring her home, which was extraordinarily fast. But the really cool thing was, she is only 6 months younger, like 6 months and a day younger than our biological oldest child. So they're kind of like twins in a lot of ways, although they're wildly different personalities. They've been best buddies kind of ever since. And something we did for Arela, who's our oldest, to get used, because she was so little. She was only 18 months when we brought Zoe home, who was a year old. And we had started putting Zoe's pictures up everywhere. So they were going to share a room. We put Zoe's picture on the crib. We put Zoe's picture on her high chair. We put Zoe's picture in all these places and started talking about Zoe. This is Zoe's bed. This is Zoe's chair. Zoe is your sister. Like, we started just having that dialogue with her. So when Zoe came home, Arela was like, Zoe, like, she was all excited to have this little friend that she'd been waiting for, for so long. And so it was just such a cool transition. And, there were moments that were really hard, just because going from 1 to 2 is hard in general. And having 2 toddlers, all of a sudden we were still new parents. But it was so, as soon as we would get frustrated and be like, oh my goodness, what have we done? We would watch the 2 of them running around the dining room table, taking off their pants and running in their diapers and laughing hysterically. And we're like, okay, this is the best thing in the world. Like, how can we even question it, And so about 6 months after we brought Zoe home, we were like, this is awesome. We want more kids. Let's start that adoption from Ethiopia. So we signed the papers, start the adoption from Ethiopia. And 3 days later, I find out I'm pregnant with my son. So our kids come in pairs, apparently. And it's just been an awesome, wild ride. Dakaya's, our littlest one, was a much harder process. Zoe's took a little over 3 years. Dakaya's took almost 5. And there was all kinds of just trauma on our part going through that process with the prime minister trying to shut down adoption in Ethiopia, with agencies closing, us having to come up with money we didn't have, getting blackmailed from an orphanage director, like all these things that came along with it, having to go over there to find out what's happening to get the process moving. But it was all worth it. And it grew me as a person and as a mom. And I mean, you have to fight for your kids, and it really just brought that to life for us. And so happy she's home. I mean, when she came home, she was a little nervous, obviously, just new people, new parents. She was 2.5. She's a little bit older. She was terrified of men and animals. So she was kind of latched to me most of the time and like a carrier on me or me holding her. But she slowly warmed up to daddy, because as soon as we came home, we had done the same thing with Takaya's picture. We had put her picture on all of her stuff. This is her bed, this is her chair. And our kids were a little bit older and they had been waiting for her. We've been praying for her and talking about her for almost 5 years. So all the kids knew about her and we're waiting for this kid to come home. When is she going to get here? And when she came home, it was like she just blended right in. She just kind of walked right into the situation. And I think she was comfortable because there were all these kids here. And that's what she was used to, where, for the week that we were there with her, it was just us and her. And it was like this weird, getting to know each other. And then she's here with these kids and she's like, okay, I like this, and she saw how they were with daddy and how comfortable they were and how much they would play. So she started, okay, I guess this guy's a good guy because they think he's a good guy. So she warmed up to daddy. She's a total daddy's girl now, which is awesome. And yeah, I mean, we've been home with her for 4 years. So that's kind of our story in a nutshell. Obviously there's a lot more there to unpack, but that's our nutshell version.
No, I love that. And I love that, because I don't get very many people on here who do international adoptions, a lot more domestic lately, obviously, because how you're kind of saying with Ethiopia, how they're just trying to shut everything down. And, because I'm an international adoptee too, but I do know some people, Colombia.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. So I do know there are some families, like hopeful adoptive parents that follow me. What would be advice for you from you for international adoption?
Put on your patient hat. You got to be ready for anything. It's such a hard thing to hold on tightly, but loosely at the same time. And it's tough because we watched people get shut out of Russia too. We were kind of the last people who were approved to finish in Ethiopia because we had already had a case logged in the court and we had been matched with our child for a year. So we were allowed to finish it, but nobody else was allowed to get matched. And so it can be very heartbreaking, but I mean, anything can be heartbreaking. Fostering to adopt can be heartbreaking. Open adoption, any adoption, just having kids can be heartbreaking, but you've got to be willing to go through that because the kids are worth it. And because they're going to be your kids and you want them to be your kids and you're going to love them no matter what. So it's a hard thing. And one of my friends, so we got really connected in the foster adoption community here in our area. And we're working with a group called the Orphan Care Network for a long time out of our church. And so we got connected to a lot of foster families, which, that's a whole different game. But I had one friend who had fostered the sibling set of girls on and off for a number of years. And and we were walking right next to her through it, and they would get taken away. And there were these horrible situations happening. And they'd come back in this just awful shape, and then they'd be sent back again. And it was just so heartbreaking to watch. And I remember asking her one time, I said, how can you go through this knowing that you're going to get your heart broken? Like, how do you walk through that? And she said, Laura, if you don't love them enough to get your heart broken, you're not doing it right. And it was just, the gravity of that really hit me, that you've got to be willing to walk that. Like, you're going to get trampled on, you're going to get broken, but those children are worth it. And you have to be willing to put yourself on the line for them.
That's beautiful. No, seriously, thank you. I don't think anybody has said that. And I love that, because that can totally go hand in hand with even adoption, because as kids get older, like me, for instance, older, working through things, trying to find out things, because I feel more international, they're definitely closed and not as open as domestic ones. And so there's the unknowns and there's the trying to figure out who you are. So I think that's beautiful. I think I love that she gave you that advice. I think that's amazing. What was the other thing I was going to ask you? Culturally, do you guys do anything to help with keep your children's cultures? I can't even talk. Cultures alive with them or anything like that? Do you guys do anything to honor it maybe in anyway?
We try. And I have to say, I'm not the best because I'm just overwhelmed trying to work and have 4 kids in general. But I mean, we definitely like celebrate Chinese New Year's, a little bit. And we talk about, because we've traveled a lot too. And so we talk about the world and we look at maps and we talk about our countries. We talk about where they're from. We joke around with Zoe because when she came home, she hated rice. Like she didn't want to eat rice. And we're like, aren't you Chinese? Like, this is kind of funny. We tease her. She loves it now. But we've always been very open with them about who they are, where they're from. And that's just always gonna be part of who they are. And we love that about them. And, that kind of brings it, like Zoe she's a very sentimental one. She's very emotional and she has been since she was little. And I think because she saw that I was pregnant with Zadok, her little brother, and she knew that she didn't come from my tummy. And so we had to have those talks about how, she has a birth mommy that wasn't able to take care of her. And that's, we prayed for this little girl and God brought us to you. And we are so happy that we get to be your forever family, and we will always pray for your birth mom. And, we've talked about going back, but she used to mourn for China as a 2-year-old who could barely talk. She would just start bawling saying, I miss China, and so trying to navigate that when they don't even have words to express it, but knowing that even little ones can feel that grief and that trauma and that impact, and trying to honor that and always, despite what people can say or what's going on in the world, always have that honor of like, whatever the government's doing, we don't care. Like, we love the people, we love where you're from, we love your country, we've met the people, like people are people, and so we always try to keep that alive. And we've done some things where like she's learned to write some calligraphy in Mandarin and things like that. We've done some little, festival type things like that. She does not want to learn Mandarin yet. I tried to get her into that, but she did not want to. I was like, you will thank me when you're older, but she doesn't want to yet. But yeah, we try our hardest. I have a friend who used to live in China that also adopted from Ethiopia, and she knows how to cook all the things. And she's given me all the recipes, but I am just not a cook and I want to try, but I know I'm going to fail miserably. So we'll get there. And I know there's an Ethiopian restaurant in Houston that probably none of my other kids will want to eat at, but I really want to take Dakaya there at some point because I think, misses the Ethiopian food and I know I'm not going to make it right. So we are going to definitely try to bring that back into her life as well.
See, I think you need to give yourself more credit because doing just even the little bits of things, that's huge. Like that's huge that you're like, I have the recipes, but I don't cook. I don't cook either. Ask my husband. It's like a miracle if there's dinner on the
time for that.
It's so true. But no, I get that. But no, seriously, like you are doing things. So I think that's awesome. I know you said you don't have like time for it because I feel like me being a mom too, there's just so much craziness, but really you're thinking of that. And I think that's wonderful and amazing. And I just love it. Do your kids, because I know it, like, at least with my siblings, because my parents had 4 biological of their own and then adopted me very last, they just don't even like, nothing's different, I should say. Does that make sense? Like, I'm family, and it sounds like that's the way it is with your kids too, right? I mean, especially because you guys took all the amazing pictures and I just love it. So do your kids are probably immersed in it like you were growing up, right? Adoption's just a thing with family.
Basically, I mean, none of them know life before it. I mean, Arela was 18 months old when Zoe came home, so she doesn't remember life before Zoe, which is great. I think that's awesome. So they don't think twice about it, and it's really cute. And kids are just funny, and people will just say things sometimes, which is good and bad. But little kids are really funny, and Arela and Zoe used to dress alike a lot when they were littler. And so they would be going, and they were about the same size and they're only 6 months apart. So we would go to like the Chick-fil-A playground or whatever. And these kids would be like, are they twins? And I'm like, what makes you think they're twins? They're like, well, they're dressed alike, so they must be twins. I'm like, well, they are sisters, but not quite twins. It's just like, it's so cute because like some kids don't even think about it really, until you educate them one way or the other. So it's brought a lot of beautiful conversations though, and I love that.
No, I think that's awesome. So, and I think that's so amazing because like with your husband, I was going to touch on that too. There's so many people that I know that have so many reservations with adoption, which I wholeheartedly understand. As much as I love it and I'm so incredibly grateful for it, I get it. Even talking to, my own mother about what they all went through and those kinds of things, I get it. And so I just think that's so beautiful. And it sounds like he just, I just love that. I love that God did that. That's like my favorite thing ever. No, seriously. Is there anything else you want to touch on? I'm trying to think. How'd you give some advice? Those kinds of things. Anything maybe for people, I'll do this because I do have a lot of mamas on here too. Infertility, anything you can give advice on that for people who are going through that really tough?
For us, I didn't really want to go through all the infertility options, because for me it was like, well, my option's adoption, because like that was just, if I can't have a kid biologically, I want to adopt. Like for me, that was just not a question. And I kind of felt like, in a, you know, financially conscious way, I guess, well, if I'm going to spend this much money, I want to make sure I'm bringing a kid home. Like it just made sense to me. I don't know, but we walked alongside a lot of friends that have done different infertility treatments and things, and it's, that's a hard road as well. And then we've had friends that have all these extra eggs left over, and there's a lot of ethical and moral issues afterward. Like, what do? Do you destroy those? Do you adopt them out? Then you have your biological kids with somebody else. Like so there's a lot of things to consider when you are doing infertility treatments. And so it's just, everybody has to kind of decide that and pray through that and figure that out on their own. But dude, I vote for adoption because I think it's awesome.
No, I love that. And I learned something new today. I had no clue that when they did that, like you could have leftover embryos. I had no clue with that. And that is something
we had some friends that really struggled because they had a lot left over, and they didn't want to destroy them because they felt like, well, that's life, I can't destroy that. But then adopting it out, why wouldn't we raise our own kids? And there's a lot of things to think about, and they eventually did actually adopt them out. And so I'm not sure what came of that. I haven't really talked to them in a long time. We moved to a different side of town, but I mean, yeah, that's heavy. That's really heavy.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's something it's so crazy how there's all these different doors and avenues that go into everything and anything. And I think it's crazy, but I love that you're such a huge advocate for adoption, because I just feel like there's this crazy movement right now where there's so much negativity in the light that I see. And so I get so excited.
In what way?
So there's a lot of adoptees that are like my age that are just so disgruntled, so hurt, and it really hurts my heart for them. The ones I've seen, they're very angry at their birth families or very angry at their adoptive parents for certain things. And I don't know, I'm the type of person that you're gonna go through hardship, you're gonna go through shit, and you're the only one that can bring yourself out of that. And if you want to sit and wallow in the negativity, by all means do it. But I have every right not to watch it, because I just, and I honor that. I honor their pain. I understand that. But for me, I don't know. I'm kind of, I don't know, happy-go-lucky person.
I agree with you. I mean, there are people who are born into biological families that have all host of issues and are trafficked and other things so, unfortunately, people are messy. People come with baggage. We live in a sinful world that's broken. It's not going to be easy, and that's not to, like you said, nullify their pain. Like, their pain is definitely real and it's there, and they need to find a way to deal with it. But I think the best way to look at it for many people is like, well, how do I not do that with my children, with my family? How can I do better? One of the things that we really, because I know, like, back in the day, like when my brother was young, like in that kind of era of adoption, a lot of people wouldn't tell their kids they were adopted. You know what I mean? So a lot of people were discovering as an adult they were adopted, which is so weird to me. And I remember my parents told me that my brother was adopted, because, like, I didn't know for some reason for a while, and they laughed that I didn't know. I guess maybe I just missed it. I don't know. And I was like, well, does he know? And they're like, yeah, he's always known. And so somehow I missed that when I was like really little. But I think just being honest with your kids, and sometimes people are like, well, if my kid looks like me, you don't have to say anything. But like, your kid needs to know that, so that, like you said, they can understand who they are as they grow up and they're older and they're finding their way in this world. And I don't think you don't have to hide that. Like, adoption can be a beautiful thing. Yes, it's born out of trauma, as many things are, but it can be beautiful, and you can be honest, and it can make for great conversations, and you can walk through that together. You don't have to have all the answers. And I think it's just parents in general. We think, well, I have all the answers, and maybe I don't answer them if I don't have the answers, but it's okay to say, I don't know, let's figure this out together. Like, and kids will, I think, respect you and trust you more when you tell them the truth like that, instead of trying to lie or hide it and act like it's some shameful thing when maybe that's not your intention, but that's how it's going to come off. You know what I mean? So honesty is always the best policy.
No, I love that. And that's like, like there are adoptees that I'm learning that has happened to them, but I love what you said. You nailed it on the head that like, I'm sorry, but nobody's exempt. There's their own biological families that go through craziness and go through hardship. But I also love, you know, that you pointed out the fact that like, you got to be open. You got to be honest. You got to, you know what I mean? You need to, and it doesn't mean that it's not going to be difficult. It doesn't mean that it's not going to be hard. And it doesn't mean, you know, that your child may want to go and search and find and whatever and whatnot, but just be supportive. And I love that. Just be an open door. And hi buddy. And you know, like it's just okay. Oh, sorry. I love that you said that, because there is so many people that just go, not even with adoption, but go through hard things. And you know, you've got to figure out if you want it to completely take over your life. And one of the things that's been hard too is because I do have a lot of adoptive parents, hopeful or adoptive parents, that follow me, and they see these, you know, adoptees that are so maybe I could like ask some advice from you for adoptive parents too. They see these adoptees that are so angry and they're so worried that they are going to, you know, ruin their child, or, and I'm just like, well, I feel like that as a parent, and my kids are my own biological, like, you know, I'm doing the best I can. But I feel like there's a lot of finger pointing from other adoptees that are like, adoptive parents, you need to do this. Adoptive parents, you have to do that. You have to change the stigma. And there's, for me, the language that you can say that nicely, but I feel like these are a lot of harsh, because they, you know, attack them for adopting a baby from a different race. And they're like, well, you're not doing her hair right this way, or you're not doing it this way, or you're not doing him this way. You know what I mean? Just like, and so what advice would you give? Because I do have some that like they talk to me about things, because I'm an adoptee, and granted, you know, my parents have always been open and honest and so amazing with things, but just like when they get attacked, I mean, because you know, you've been in the spotlight before, what would you say to them to help them kind of combat that?
Yeah, it's hard because you can get 1,000 great comments and you get one negative one, and it can send you on a downward spiral. I totally get that. I've been reamed quite a few times. And really, I mean, ultimately, these people are attacking you because they're from a place of hurt, and they're just lashing out because they don't know how to fix their problems, and they don't know how to deal with their problems. And you have to understand that their pain is not your pain. You know, what you're going through is completely separate, and they have to resolve their own problems. You can't do that for them. You know, what you can do is just the best job you can. Be honest with your kid, love your kid, ask for help when you need it. And if somebody is treating you badly when you're asking for help, go somewhere else and ask for help. Like, you don't need to have this one like, their social media is a thing, and it's a great network for a reason. You get connected with anybody you need to get connected with, just about. So use social media, you know, come ask Milena, like, who do I go for this? Like, ask for help. It's okay. And I, you know, usually get great responses when I ask people for honest feedback with that. Like, look, I have this daughter that has different hair than me. Like, what would you suggest? I had somebody send me a great, like, deep conditioner that I should use in her hair once a month. And I was like, I didn't know that. Like, that's awesome. I might use that too. I think I could use it, you know, but it's just really, it's okay to ask for help, and it's okay to stumble through things. And if people are yelling at you, like, just don't listen. Like, just, it's easy to say, it's hard to do, but just know that, just block those people. They're dealing with their own stuff, and it's not your stuff. It's yours is separate. Do your best, the best that you can do. And your kids are going to be, the fact that you're worried about it tells me your kids are going to be just fine. You know what I mean? It's those people who aren't worried, that think they know everything, that are just plowing through life, that are probably going to have the issues later on.
No, it's so true. And I just love you even more, because I feel like a lot of our views are the same, because I've had people come and ask me, you know, like advice for being an adoptee, and like, it's 100% true. One negative thing just brings you down like none other. But I'm just like, it's so hard, but you've got to remember they have something going on in their life right now they are so not happy with. So it's going to make them feel better to take it out on you when it's not intended for you.
Yeah.
It's
And
just,
they don't see your everyday. They don't know what you're walking through. They don't know your kid. They don't know you. They don't know your situation at all.
yes.
So there's a lot of assumptions all around, and you just got to, like, let that go.
Exactly. I love it. I love it so much. Anything else that you would like to share off the top of your head? I think that's all I can, as far as questions go.
I don't know. I mean, the adoptive, like, whole process can be intimidating and scary and overwhelming because of a lot of the things we talked about, but that doesn't mean it's not worth doing. You know, those, you know, they say when you step out of your comfort zone, that's when you grow, and you are going to become a better person in pursuing your child, you know what I mean? And that's your child, like whether they're your blood or not, like that doesn't make it, like DNA doesn't make a kid your kid. Love makes your kid a kid. You know, I have 4 wildly different children, and they're all awesome and I love them all. And I have a different relationship with each one of them, and it's beautiful and it's awesome. I can't imagine life without them. You know, I don't even remember life before they made it. It must have been really boring back then. So, you know, and it's okay to, like, when you adopt a child and bring them into your home, if you don't feel an immediate connection with that child, that's okay, because you don't know them and they don't know you. And sometimes it's like you've seen this kid's face for years, you know, and you have fallen in love with them, you've been praying for them, but the kid's never seen you before. So you are a stranger and they don't understand what's happening and it's new for them. So they might be 2, 4, 5, 6, 7 years old, but they're a newborn in your family and you have to get to them and start this relationship. And it's hard, especially when the kid is older and you expect more out of them. And it's not there. And you got to kind of sometimes bite your tongue and just take a deep breath. Remember, they're on their own journey. They're not on the same timeline as everyone else. They're doing it their own way on their own time. And I need to support them where they're at, you know, whatever that looks like. And that's okay. So don't worry about your process looking like anybody else's. Don't worry about the scary parts. There are people like us that are to walk you through it and to hold your hand and to cheer you on when everybody's yelling at you and you haven't slept for 3 days. And, you know, we're there for you. There is an underground cool community apparently that you need to be a part of.
No, I love it. And seriously, I just love you. If you guys don't follow her, go follow her. She's just amazing. She is just so fun because she shares all her like working out and athletic stuff and some of her like I said, badass dives, but she also shares her family. And it's just so, and she's just a good down to earth human. And I just love, and she's the nicest. So if you want to reach out and ask her a question, I mean, she answers little old me. So I bet she'd do the same to you. So no, but seriously, thank you so much for taking some time out of your morning to sit down and talk to me. And I so appreciate it. And I so enjoyed getting to know you better. And I'm so grateful that I got to know you and sit down and chat with you. So seriously, thank you so much.
Definitely. Thank you for letting me talk about my passion. Like I don't get to talk about this a lot. So it's so fun to talk about my kids and it's wanted.
No, I so appreciate it. Thank you.